course, it's a big-time game on Wednesday. Manchester City taking on Real Madrid in the second leg of that Champions League semi-final. 1-1, of course, it was at the Santiago Bernabeu. Nathan, how much does, if at all, what happened today change their mentality going into this game?
I think it's a separate thing, to be honest, and they know that with this tie it's a chance to go and win a game in front of your fans and get to a Champions League semi-final, and that would be hugely celebrated, and it sets up what could be potentially a very, very significant week for the football club. But I don't think, say, what them beating Everton or, say, Arsenal losing is going to be the key to them winning on Wednesday. I think they need to find the right sort of approach, understand that Madrid might, to some extent, tweak certain bits of their performance, try and play into some of City's weaknesses, but City themselves, it's a great opportunity to just be on the front foot and try and go out there and just get a positive result, go and get that win, get the crowd excited. And because the game last year, 4-3 was a fantastic game of football. Man City believed that they could have scored more as well. I remember them leaving the stadium and there was this sort of feeling like almost as if they'd lost, even though they just won a game themselves. So I don't think today's game has a huge bearing on it. I think if they do manage to win that game, I think those previous two games then have a huge bearing on the game against Chelsea at the weekend, I think. Because with that, that's their last home game of the season. And so what an opportunity for them to potentially lift a Premier League title and to almost thank the fans and say, well, now we're going to be in a position whereby the two league games that do matter, but not as much as the games that come after, which will potentially be an FA Cup final and a Champions League final. So I think the big game on Wednesday is key. But then when we look back in reflection, I think those last two will be the ones that will signify how important that game against Chelsea will be.
I think the key from now, particularly after this result today, when every single person is saying that's it, it's over, we've done it, we've won it.
Yep.
The key is the coaching staff. Because if they sniff that anybody in that City team or squad, all of a sudden they notice they think it's done and dusted, particularly the Premier League, they have to jump on them quick. You've won nothing.
Because you don't want that complacency creeping into Wednesday.
Not at all. Absolutely not. It's hold on a second. And again, the culture of the club takes over as well. But in order to keep that culture where it is, you need everybody to be like that. You need your Gundawans to be making sure that nobody gets carried away. And your coaching staff to just remind people, by the way, we ain't won the Premier League. We've got a big game coming up, so you need to keep your eye on the game. Don't be getting carried away. I mean, it's huge. Because there's always one who starts acting the big guy, the better, you know what.
Right.
But it's important.
Stevie, back in the
it's
day?
important that it's squashed, and with the experience they have, I'm sure that'll happen.
I think it's important that you're playing against Real Madrid on Wednesday, and this is a team that eliminated you from Champions League last year, and so therefore, if indeed there was anybody in that locker room that were feeling the way that you are describing, Stevie, that would be the attention getter. Yeah. This team left us out of the competition last season. We have to take care of this team first and foremost. We'll worry about the next part of this season, but Real Madrid is what we have got to focus on.
We know Nadem is the king of the double bluff.
Uh-huh.
Who's going to win the Premier League, Nadem?
Oh, here we go.
Oh, that's a tough one, Dan. That's a very tough one. If I was to look at Don's percentages, I think he'd put it at probably 99% to Man City, but it's not a dead cert. So I've got to say Man City. And the reason I say that isn't necessarily because they're playing Chelsea at the weekend, but I've got this feeling that Nottingham Forest playing at home against Arsenal on the weekend is a very, very big game for Nottingham Forest, because that could be the game that keeps them in the Premier League, and it's their last home game as well. So I think that game is probably going to be a bit tougher for Arsenal than, say, some people give it credit for. So I think Man City win it this weekend, yeah.
Jules, this will be City's fifth win out of 6 seasons. Has the Premier League got a problem?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll be honest here. I hate this argument on like, oh, it's not good for a league. That Bayern win 10 in a row, that Juventus win 9 in a row, that City win 5 out of 6. In those 5 seasons, Arsenal this season is pushing them quite hard. Okay, maybe not to the last day and the last kick like Liverpool last season, but they've pushed them hard, really, really hard and far. Liverpool have done it regularly in those 5 titles. I mean, 2 especially, the one with 97 points. So you can't tell me that if City were winning 5 out of 6 by a gap of 26 points in average, I would say, okay, fair enough. But not when you've got other teams who push them. And maybe then people realize what an incredible team this is. And what Pep Guardiola has built is very special. it's the same way that the Liverpool team that Stevie was playing in. Yes, they won a lot, but there was still competition at the time in the league. There were big clubs with them, and it was just never easy for them to win. And 89 happened, for example, which was a season where Liverpool were still the strongest team, and yet somehow that season they didn't win it. But they were very dominant, yes, in terms of trophies that they won, but there were teams at times that were pushing them too. And this is what it is. It doesn't matter if you win 5 in 6, as long as the team around you are still very competitive. They're pushing you. They're there with you, 97 point, 98 point, 85, 80 for now. It could have been 85, 83, whatever. This is it. And I think this is the most important for the Premier League. I don't think the Premier League has a problem because City won 5 out of the last 6. They won 5 out of the last 6 because they are an incredible team. But in most of those 5 seasons where they won, they were also pushed all the way pretty much by some other really good teams like Liverpool and like Arsenal this season.
However, City can open the checkbook and win it last season and bring in Erling Haaland. Yep. You can spend 100 million on Jack Grealish and bring him in. How much are the other teams handicapped because of that, and how much is that going to affect the Premier League going forward?
I don't think you can turn around and say the other teams are that handicapped. We've just seen Chelsea spending how much stupid money?
Yes.
So it's about yes, having money, but you have to spend it wisely. And you cannot argue that if there's one thing City have done, they've spent their money wisely. And that's the key. And again, I'm with Jules. I don't think the key is the 1 5 out of 6. The key is the competition, 1. But 2, how good have they been? They've been fantastic. So if you've got a team that's arguably the best on the planet, you can't argue if they're winning year after year. And it's even better that there's actually competition. That means you've got health, you've got a healthy league. Okay, they won it 5 out of 6, but you've got a healthy league where there is competition. But it's about, I don't think it's about the money, because I think there's a lot of teams got money. It's about spending it wisely. And they've done the right thing every single time. Even going back 3 years to the likes of Diaz and Walker. Yes, it's good to have the money, but they're smart. They're smart and they've spent well.
And it's not just the money that they're spending, but the decision they're making on players that are no longer in the club. Yeah, guys like Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus, that for them it may have been better to go to Arsenal, but it's also for Manchester City saying, well, you know what, we can afford to let you go because we are bringing Julian Alvarez and because Erling Haaland is coming in, and so therefore, hey, we don't need you. And you're making decisions that now we look at and say, well, that was great. I think what's important here is, in regards to the money that Stevie's talking about, when you watch Brighton play today and you see Mitoma, you see Caicedo, McAllister, Estupiñán, you kind of go, these are players that dominated Arsenal away from home. And that's impressive in itself. But it's a message to other clubs, Chelsea, for example, that it's not buying your way to a title, is the quality with which you're buying and purchasing players. And how you're picking players that make sense to the team you want to be and to the coach that you have in place. No decision in Manchester City goes without Pep Guardiola saying, yeah, that's a guy for me. That doesn't happen in every team. It should happen, but it doesn't happen in every team. So it's not just the money, it's how the club is run, it's how you make decisions, player acquisition, and how you let players that you think are no longer helpful to you walk out the door.
Nadim, you were saying before we came on air that Manchester City are ruining the Premier League.
Oh, was I? Sorry, that must have been the wrong number. I wasn't trying to speak to you like that. No, I really enjoyed listening to what the guys were saying there, because I think those are really very valid and nuanced points as well when talking about the Premier League and the situation should City win it in terms of the 5 of the 6. Because as I look back, I picture really significant title races. But would the sentiment be the same if, say, in 3 of those seasons Liverpool would have won the title instead of City? Would that mean that Liverpool ruining the Premier League? Well, probably not. It's just ended up being this way. But the fact that that's how far teams have got to go to try and win a Premier League title, I think it says a lot. And when you look at how close the gap is in some of those seasons, the difference is literally 1 game. We're talking about a difference between a loss and a win dictating in a 38-game season whether you win a title or not. I don't think they're ruining the league, and I think Ali's point about how Brighton, played so well today against an Arsenal team who cost a lot more probably than say the Brighton players did. Like, there is more to football than just the money in the players which you can afford to bring in, because you need to create the right sort of philosophy, bring in the right players for your system, and they need to be able to perform and have that sense of stability and understanding about how they're going to do it. And I think throughout the season Arsenal have been that. But then Brighton have been an exceptional story. So it just goes to show, like, there is more than sort of the really simple arguments about City ruining everything because they can buy Erling Haaland.